This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 3 hours, 39 minutes and counting. Today, NASA will embark on this 92nd space shuttle flight in the 17-year history of the shuttle program. This particular shuttle flight represents historical significance. This marks John Glenn's return to space for the first time in 36 years. The near 9-day mission features the deployment and retrieval of the Spartan satellite designed to study the sun's corona and its effects on the Earth. Tests will be performed on electronic and thermodynamic equipment to be installed on the Hubble Space Telescope during its next servicing mission in 2 years. The Space Hab module aboard Discovery contains 30 smaller experiments ranging from material science to plant growth to developing new techniques for delivering vital anti-tumor medications. We are just hours away from NASA's 92nd space shuttle launch and the 25th flight of the orbiter Discovery with a crew of 7 astronauts. And we have the flight crew for STS-95 getting ready for a historic mission today, mission STS-95. From the left, we have Japanese astronaut Dr. Chiaki Mukai, a one-time shuttle veteran and the first Japanese woman to fly in space. Mukai is one of several Japanese astronaut representatives from NASA. Seated next to her, Payload Specialist John Glenn, flying for the second time in space today. He circled the Earth 3 times in 1962 on the first American orbital mission. We have pilot Steve Lindsey, a one-time shuttle veteran. He will assist Brown in control of the shuttle during the mission and is involved in the Space Hab science. Commander Kurt Brown, flying for the 5th time today on the space shuttle. He has overall responsibility for the safety and success of the mission. Payload Commander Steve Robinson, a one-time shuttle veteran. Robinson is responsible for a variety of payloads and related elements. He celebrated his 43rd birthday on Monday, the day the countdown began. We have European Space Agency astronaut and shuttle rookie, Pedro Duque. We also have Mission Specialist Scott Parazynski, a 2-time shuttle veteran. He will be involved in the Spartan and testing components for the Hubble Space Telescope. Crew has been awake for about an hour now, seated around at the breakfast table. And in the center of the table, we have a traditional cake with the insignia for this flight, bearing the number 7. Also has the shuttle and a small Mercury capsule encircling the shuttle. Crew next will have a weather briefing. Commander and pilot will be involved in going over weather scenarios here at Kennedy Space Center. And the weather continues to be 100% go for launch this morning here in Florida. And we do have the flight crew getting suited up. Commander Kurt Brown, flying for the 5th time today. Kurt Brown obviously ready to go and launch the space shuttle today. Got pilot Steve Lindsey. This is flying for the 2nd time. He will assist Brown during the rendezvous and retrieval of the Spartan payload and will be involved in several payloads, including the solid surface combustion experiment, and also will assist in the shuttle landing. And Commander Brown and pilot Lindsey were the last 2 to be suited up. They were involved in a weather briefing just completed with Flight Director Linda Ham and also weather briefers around the world. European Space Agency astronaut Pedro Duque, flying for the 1st time today, getting suited up. He was born in Madrid, Spain. He is also trained at the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center in Russia as a backup for several of the Mir space station flights. Quite busy in the suit-up room at the Kennedy Space Center Operations and Checkout Building. Across the room, we've got Mission Specialist Steve Robinson. He's the payload commander, designated as Mission Specialist 1. This will be his 2nd flight today. He is the prime mission specialist for the International Extreme Ultraviolet Hitchhiker experiment. He will be involved in Space Hab systems, robotic experiments, the robot arm, and payload bay door closing. Next we have Mission Specialist 2, astronaut Scott Parazynski, making his 3rd flight today. He serves as the flight engineer and will assist the commander and pilot with ascent and re-entry checklists and in monitoring the vehicle systems. He will also be involved in several payloads, the Spartan, the Host, and the Extreme Ultraviolet Hitchhiker. NASA astronaut Chiaki Mukai. She's flying into space for the second time today. She was the first female astronaut from Japan. And we've got Payload Specialist number 2, John Glenn. This was his second flight into space today. He's going through various checks required, making sure that we can circulate air into the spacesuits. There's lots of checks performed in the suit-up room to verify all systems on the suits are operating and will be able to support launch today. Glenn's first historical flight aboard the Friendship 7 Mercury capsule in 1962 was the first time an American orbited the Earth. 36 years later, his primary duties on the shuttle will be studies on aging, including sleep cycles, immune system, and changes in bone density and muscle mass. On Glenn's first flight, back in 1962, he had 10 launch attempts before actually launching on the 11th try on February the 20th in 1962. And we see Commander Kurt Brown, Dr. Chiaki Mukai, Payload Specialist John Glenn behind Kurt Brown, Pilot Steve Lindsey behind Dr. Mukai, and behind Lindsey we have Scott Parazynski and Steve Robinson, and to also Pedro Duque. Members of the support team following and employees wishing them well. These are members of the astronaut support team here at Kennedy Space Center. Be riding down a couple floors to the ground level where the crew will be getting out into the outdoors out near the Astro van. And Commander Kurt Brown going inside the Astro van. Today we have astronaut Rick Linehan here to help describe some of the details of the crew strap-in. It's like Commander pulling himself up, getting into position there.
It's a bit different when you go in the orbiter. I mean, when you see the orbiter, you know, you think of it, some people think of it, and I know I did at first, as looking like an airplane, because you normally see it in a flying configuration or on the ground. But when you're in a launch configuration, you're obviously on your back with the orbiter's nose pointing straight up in the air. So the spatial reality, I guess, of when you first walk in there can be a little bit disconcerting, because the floor becomes the wall, and the wall becomes the ceiling, and vice versa. And so you have to learn how to crawl in what handholds you can use and where you can put your knees and feet and hands, so you're not touching switches or important things like that, but yet also be able to move around and position yourself to get up into the seat. Now you get a shot here of the mid-deck, and you can see Carlos is there, and here comes Chiaki. And there's the handhold we talked about a second ago in terms of what she can use to maneuver herself into her seat. And now she's laying on the back of her seat, and you can see that she laid down on the parachute with her harness on, and she's positioning herself now so Carlos can get the straps and everything configured so she's able to be strapped in efficiently. And here comes Steve, Now watch him get up into the pilot seat. He's got to get his hands up high and actually boost himself almost like a pull-up into the seat and move his feet around, and being very careful not to hit the center panel, the C3 panel. And then he lowers himself into the seat, again very carefully, brings his arms down, and you can imagine with the extra weight of the suit and the harnesses that it's not all that easy a thing.
OTC, OECC.
Go ahead, sir.
TS2 on board at this time.
TS1, contact.
TS1 in Houston, I read you loud and clear. Ohio, Chiaki.
Ohio gozaimasu. Thank you. Loud and clear.
You can see how well those Siloom sticks show up in the lower light down there. It's kind of impressive to see him. And there's a senator using the handholds to get himself in. Just bounced right in there, and he's up in his seat. And you heard the designations before as PS or MS, and I'm sure everyone knows that the PS means Payload Specialist. Chiaki is Payload Specialist 1, and Senator Glenn is Payload Specialist 2. And then Steven over on the side will be a Mission Specialist, and 2 mission specialists on the flight deck, and of course the pilot and CDR.
OTC, PS2, com check, over. PS2, loud and clear. Good morning, John. Thank you much.
We are pleased to be joined this afternoon by another of NASA's original 7 Mercury astronauts, Scott Carpenter, and he has a special message for the crew aboard Discovery.
Yes, at this point in the count, it seems appropriate to say to the shuttle Discovery crew, good luck, have a safe flight, and to say once again, Godspeed, John Glenn.
CDR Launch Director.
Go ahead, Launch Director.
Kurt, the launch team is go. Your vehicle's ready. The weather's beautiful out there. On behalf of the entire launch team, you and the crew of Discovery have a great mission.
Thank you very much, sir, and Discovery's crew is definitely ready to go, and we would like you to proceed.
Orbiter access arm now moving away from the shuttle Discovery as we get a final glimpse of the cockpit where the 7 astronauts await the launch of STS-95. The orbiter flight control systems are being moved through their pre-programmed pattern, and they will be verified they are ready for launch. The 3 main engines are being gimbaled and positioned for launch.
Flight crew OTC, close and lock your visors, initiate O2. And on this historic mission, let the wings of Discovery lift us onto the future. And CDR copies, we'll close our visors and go to suit O2.
T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8. We have a go for engine start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Discovery with a crew of 6 astronaut heroes and 1 American legend.
Houston Discovery, roll program.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
1 minute and 50 seconds into the flight. Discovery now at an altitude of 25 miles, traveling at a speed of 2,900 miles an hour. The next event will be burnout and separation of Discovery's twin solid rocket boosters.
Discovery Houston, 2-engine Banjul.
Copy, 2-engine Banjul.
Dabs alive.
GLS is go for main engine start.
Keys. 3 at 100. 3 at 100. 102, 102. Auto. Flip. 3 at 104. Copy 104. Houston Discovery, roll program. LVLH left.
Roger, Roger.
LVLH right. Okay. 7. Okay, stand by for Miko. Ready. Miko. Okay.
Miko confirmed.
Confirmed.
Wait on 104.
Wait for 104. Okay, waiting to get off the tank.
Discovery Houston, Nomina Miko, ohms 1 not required.
Copy, ohms 1 not required. Hello, Houston. This is PS2, and they let me get sprung out of the middeck for a little while. We're just going by Hawaii, and that is absolutely gorgeous.
And roger that. Glad you're enjoying the show.
Boy, enjoying the show is right. This is beautiful. The best part is do a trite old statement, 0G, and I feel fine.
Roger that. We had a bunch of your friends asking about you today, and they were wondering how you're feeling, and I'm sure they're glad to hear that.
First report is great. I don't know what happens on down the line, but today is beautiful and great, and Hawaii is I just can't even describe it.
Well, I dare say you'll see that view a couple more times before you come back.
And Beamer, let the record show that that John has a smile on his face, and it goes from one ear to the other one, and we haven't been able to remove it yet.
Well, that's just great, and that sounds pretty familiar.
Yeah, Beamer, and it's really catching, too, because Pedro has the same smile, but he tends to have that all the time, but his is a lot bigger from up here. And Houston Discovery for MET.
Go ahead, Discovery.
Yeah, Beam, I just want the record to show that we've just passed 4 hours, 55 minutes, and 23 seconds, and I promised I'd take Senator Glenn on his second flight and make it a little bit longer than his first flight, and we've already accomplished that. So we're a bunch of smiling faces up here.
And roger that. Congratulations to the Senator for doubling his spaceflight hours.
Kurt's a man of his word. I'm now doubled on my space time and building up every second here. Thanks a lot. Cape Discovery, this job, we got a real good view. There's a little break in the clouds right there, some clouds around. We got a good view of Perth, a nice glow, and spread out, and been a long time ago. I looked at the same thing from a little lower altitude, but it looks beautiful up here, and you can pass that along to the people of Perth. We send our best regards.
We copy, John. That sounds great. Glad you're having a chance to take advantage of that site again after all these years, and I'm sure the people in Perth will be glad to hear that.
I think it looks even brighter now than it did back then. They really got them lit up tonight here. I hope we get this recorded well so we can send them a picture of it.
Outstanding.
Houston Discovery, we've even got a moon glint all along there. We still have Perth in sight, way back, just going under some clouds right now. So we had a long, long pass over Perth. It was fortunate we had a real big gap in the clouds there, and it shows now going out of sight under the clouds, but we still have a little glow there.
We're all envious of your view. Perth is a beautiful city from the ground and probably even more beautiful from space.
Visible on John Glenn's wrist an actigraph that is part of the equipment that he's wearing to monitor his core body temperature as part of the life sciences experiments that are being conducted throughout the course of this mission. While Duque and Glenn continue to work here in the Space Hab module up on the flight deck, Commander Kurt Brown, pilot Steve Lindsey, and Mission Specialist number 1 Steve Robinson are preparing to deploy the PanSat satellite. That's a small, non-recoverable satellite designed by the Naval Postgraduate School. They're scheduled to deploy that a little more than half an hour from now. In the meantime, work continuing in earnest on this first full day of scientific activity for the crew members on board Discovery.
Cartridge exchange, steps 1 to 33 complete, AGHF 3, FM1, Black Prom. I'm waiting for reprogramming.
Copy that. Thanks, Pedro.
Discovery Houston for Kurt. The ejection system is powered and you are go for deploy on time.
Copy, ejection system powered, go for deploy. And Houston Discovery concerning the hose replacement.
Go ahead, Kurt.
Hey, thanks a lot to the IFM folks, but we replaced the hose, no leaks. The Lears is back in place and working.
Outstanding. That's good news.
It's a very great day for Thursday in orbit. Everybody's smiling.
This is Mission Control Houston. And this is a look at one of the experiments being conducted on board Discovery in the glove box housed in the middeck. This is the IFFD experiment, or the internal flows in a free drop experiment, that is looking at the characteristics of surface tension. Surface tension, again, is simply that property of a liquid surface that holds it together, similar to having a skin on it. Researchers are attempting to measure the surface tension of these drops, and the investigation uses an acoustic energy, or basically sound, to remotely control the position and the motion of these free-floating drops. Again, this is an investigation that has applications for potential improvements in the manufacturing process here on Earth.
T, 11.36 centigrade, 52.4 Fahrenheit.
And now in the view on the middeck here in Discovery is pilot Steve Lindsey in the left-hand corner of the image, and floating overhead Mission Specialist number 3, Pedro Duque. Duque is the first Spanish national ever to fly in space.
Copy.
QS plus 2.10. TE plus 5.413. TER plus 0.002. P 11.413. C and FE 000.
Okay, and the last change we have is for you to delete step 28 on page 1-6 and step 29 on page 1-7.
Okay, 28 and 29 have been deleted.
And Discovery Space Hab for AGHF, we need to know the color of prom you used with the last cartridge insertion.
Yeah, I'll take this one since I'm in the Space Hub. The prom is black, just as the label of AGHF 6FM1.
We copy Pedro. We need one last item before we let you go. We need to know the third number on the lower line of the astroculture display.
Okay, I'll read you the lower line of astroculture. Just a moment. Okay, I'm here by astroculture. I'm starting to tell you the numbers. 22.9, 70.23, so that's 70.73, 154, 411.
Copy. Thanks for your help, Pedro.
and Discovery, we're with you on the middeck.
Copy that.
This is Mission Control Houston, and from the middeck on board Discovery, Japanese astronaut and payload specialist number 1, Chiaki Mukai, preparing for her day on orbit, having a beverage, which is in the silver container she's holding. It will be another busy day for Chiaki Mukai as she supports a variety of scientific investigations being conducted on board Discovery. There are more than 80 different experiments that will occupy the crew's time throughout the 9 days on orbit. She's joined now in the foreground, John Glenn, payload specialist number 2. And floating into view now, Pedro Duque, the first Spanish national to fly in space. Pedro Duque is mission specialist number 3, and in the upper right-hand portion of this view now, mission specialist number 1, Steve Robinson. He will be operating the shuttle's robot arm today when that 50-foot arm is used to deploy the Spartan spacecraft to begin 48 hours of solar observations. This view from the end effector camera on the shuttle's 50-foot-long robot arm as it is being maneuvered into position by astronaut Steve Robinson on board Discovery, ready to grapple the Spartan spacecraft and then release it to begin its 2 days of solar observations. From controls at the aft flight deck on board Discovery, Steve Robinson is maneuvering the shuttle's robot arm into position to grapple the Spartan spacecraft. He's being assisted by mission specialist number 2, Scott Parazynski, who is providing him with information and data and providing an extra set of eyes essentially through this procedure.
Discovery Houston, no response required. We will be intermittently off the tail until MET 2225.
Copy, Mike. I got a good grapple and just wanted to mention that the overlay looked like it was very, very accurate.
Copy. Good news, Steve.
And mission specialist Steve Robinson on board Discovery at the aft flight control station is in the process of unberthing the Spartan spacecraft. The shuttle's robot arm and Spartan are now in what's being referred to as test position number 1. That to provide an opportunity to test the video guidance system, or VGS. This the checkout of a series of targets that are mounted on the structure. Laser lights are bounced off of them to provide data that can be used in the development of an automated docking system for use with the International Space Station.
Affirmative. Good picture of
Okay,
Spartan.
and this is just prior to the release. You'll see D1 here, and then pretty soon D2, and you'll see Steve Robinson pull the arm away. There he goes. And Steve pulls the arm away, and then we're going to wait here for about 2.5 minutes or so, and what we're looking for is the satellite to do a pirouette maneuver. It will roll about the end effector target that he just pulled off of 45 degrees in one direction and the other. So Steve pulls the arm away, and he'll park it out here. At this point, Kurt in the back will take control of the vehicle, ready to fly it, assuming the Spartan stays in the same relative location of the orbiter. That won't be necessary as it wasn't today, but he's there just in case. And if you can see the bright reflection off the target that he just pulled off of, the correct attitude for deployment, the sun is actually pointing directly at that target. So that's why you see the bright reflection on the white surface there. And over the next couple days, as the Spartan does its maneuvers to study the sun, all of its maneuvering will be based on that initial release attitude. That's why it's so critical to have it pointing in that direction for the release itself. And you can see the pirouette now starting. It's going to rotate 45 degrees, and then you'll see it stop. And there goes the SEP. And we're separating at about 1 foot per second. You can see the satellite drifting away. Very controlled maneuver.
This is Mission Control Houston, and from onboard Discovery during her off-duty time, a very energetic Chiaki Mukai has just begun her exercise period a bit ahead of schedule. She's joined by pilot Steve Lindsey, demonstrating physics in microgravity as a fluid drop can be floated and actually eaten off of a spoon.
And Houston, we also also have Pedro and the Space Hab working. I'll go ahead and switch you down there if you don't mind.
Sounds good to us. And we're with you in the Space Hab.
And now in the Space Hab module, which is in Discovery's payload bay, European Space Agency astronaut Pedro Duque. Very shortly, he will conduct a status check with the Payload Operations Control Center here on the ground in Houston as he goes through and checks the progress and status of many of the experiments being conducted in that Space Hab module. Every day, the crew members talk with the Payload Operations Control Team here in Houston, and at the beginning and end of each day, provide a status of the different experiments on board. Duque, a European Space Agency astronaut, is the first Spanish national in space, and he is joined now in the Space Hab module by Mission Specialist number 2, Scott Parazynski.
Houston Discovery got a good grapple of Spartan.
Copy that. Great job, Steve. Discovery Houston, we see the Spartan berthed and latched. Congratulations and great job on a successful Spartan rendezvous and retrieval. And great job on the manual phase. The prop officer has a smile on her face. Also, FYI, we only had a few minutes of KU coverage for the entire pass, and that lined right up with the grapple, so we all had a great view.
Great, Mike. Thanks a lot.
This view from onboard Discovery as the shuttle's robot arm is being unlatched and maneuvered into position to support investigations of the orbiter space vision system and the video guidance sensor system. OSVS and VGS will be tested out as the astronauts use the Spartan spacecraft, which was retrieved yesterday. The arm will once again be used to grapple the Spartan spacecraft and lift it out of the payload bay. It will not be released. It will remain on the arm, and it will be put through a series of predetermined maneuvers to allow a test of the orbiter space vision system, which uses a series of targets mounted on the spacecraft and in the payload bay.
Well, Scott did a nice unberth there, and we're down under check CCTV and auto iris, and I was thinking we ought to leave camera A and manual iris at the moment.
And Steve, we concur with that. And we're with you in the Space Hab.
This is Mission Control Houston, and this view from the Space Hab module with Japanese Space Agency astronaut Chiaki Mukai in the foreground, and behind her, the European Space Agency astronaut Pedro Duque. Mukai is working on an experiment referred to as C-gel. There are 2 experiments on board that are studying colloids, which are essentially fine particles that are suspended in a fluid. Currently, she's working with C-gel. The other experiment, which is referred to as C-dot, is simply studying colloids in space. C-gel is looking at how these denser particles will begin to fall toward the bottom, and also gives researchers an opportunity to see how the suspended particles, which are allowed to sit for several days, organize themselves in these gel-like arrangements. This view, some crystals of water can be seen, the result of a dump of supply water from onboard Discovery. Water is generated as a byproduct of power generation on board, and routinely throughout the mission, water is dumped overboard. And here now, a good view with one of the low light cameras in Discovery's payload bay of that water being vented overboard.
Discovery Houston, Kurt Wexby here.
Go ahead, Wexby.
Great job on the flight so far. I just wanted to tell you that we've been having some fun down here looking at the drag chute things. And I'll start this short discussion by saying that we do think it will be a normal entry, and none of the things will happen about the drag chute. And I'll end with that same thing also. So do your normal procedures, of course. Some of the things we didn't write in the message, we think if it comes out above Mach 3, it'll burn off. If it comes out below Mach 3, we think it'll tear off. We also think that you'll be able to see it out the overhead window if it does come out with some mirrors. We will have Charlie Precourt in the STA to give you some calls on final. And of course, although it is the worst possible thing, that's what we do best down here, is think about the worst possible. If it does come out close to the ground, the best thing to do is to take your hands off the RHC and let the pitch transient occur, which the sim studies show will be a couple of degrees up first and then down, and it'll be over in about a second or two after you jettison the chute, and then you can resume flying. And again, remember that we think none of this will happen, and you'll have a normal entry.
Okay, Wex, we copy that, and we got that from your previous message, so appreciate words.
Okay, thanks. Great job on the flight.
Discovery Houston for Kurt. We're starting to see a divergence in manifold 3, and so we'd like you to close left RCS manifold 3 on 07.
Copy, closed RCS manifold 3 on 07 for the left side.
Good copy.
Okay, manifold 3 on the left side is coming closed on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
We copy.
This is Mission Control Houston, and that call from spacecraft communicator Mike Gernhardt here in the flight control room to Commander Kurt Brown on board Discovery, asking the crew to go ahead and close one of the manifolds, that following the failure of one of 44 reaction control system jets during today's RCS hot fire test in anticipation of a landing tomorrow. There is no impact to the planned landing operations with the closure of that manifold, as there is considerable redundancy still left in the system. Again, just a call to close one of the manifolds, the left aft manifold, number 3, following a failure today of one of the jets. And the flight control team here in Houston being informed by the propulsion officer that they were continuing to see that leak rate and that the prudent thing to do would be to go ahead and just close that manifold. Again, sufficient redundancy on board that this has absolutely no effect on the philosophy for a landing tomorrow.
This is Mission Control Houston. The propulsion officer in Mission Control reports we are burning on this orbital just burn. The pictures from the aft payload bay cameras show some flashing in the far left-hand portion of the screen. Here are the reaction control system engines burning at the aft of the shuttle.
Three minutes, 55 seconds remaining before touchdown. Discovery now traveling at 650 miles per hour at an altitude of 8 miles. Downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, 68 miles.
We have now gone below the speed of sound, Mach 1, and the commander has taken over the Space Shuttle Discovery manually at this time. As Kurt Brown is now piloting the shuttle down the glide slope and center line of the runway, Steve Lindsey, the pilot, is focused primarily on the landing gear extend switches, where he will arm them at 2,000 feet and lower the landing gear at 300 feet.
"50 seconds away from touchdown. Discovery now traveling at a speed of 368 miles per hour.
pilot Steve Lindsey has now armed the landing gear, and he's waiting to just push that button to lower him at 300 feet.
The landing gear is down and locked. Main gear touchdown. And nose gear touchdown. Discovery rolls out on runway 33, concluding a journey of 3.6 million miles and a moment in history.
Houston Discovery, well stopped, KSC.
Welcome home, Discovery, and a crew of 7 heroes from a mission dedicated to improving life on Earth. Beautiful landing, Kurt. Stand by for post-landing deltas.
Okay, hello Houston, this is PS2. I'm better known to a lot of you as John, and I want to reprise a statement I made a long, long time ago. Except this time it is 1G, and I feel fine. Discovery and this crew took us around and around, and that view is still tremendous. And seriously, to those whose prayers, along with my own, followed us around the world, our heartfelt thanks and appreciation, and to all the NASA team from top to bottom and bottom to top, that continue to do the superb research job that benefits every home in this nation. And often without notice or proper recognition. Our thanks and my personal thanks for a job well done. Give each other a pat on the back. You deserve it.
And there is the aft area of Discovery where the chute is deployed. You can see that it is intact in that location, and there will be some additional inspections very shortly when we put a high reach up around that area to inspect the wires associated with the mortar and the pyrotechnics. And here are the members of the STS-95 crew, being greeted by NASA Administrator Dan Golden and KSC Center Director Roy Bridges. Xiao Uchida, the President of NASDA, greeting the crew.
The Discovery has landed, and spirits in America and Europe and Japan soar. And let me introduce you to the leader who made that happen, Commander Kurt Brown.
Well, I'm not going to say too much because I think Senator Glenn said it all at landing. We had a very successful flight. We wanted to thank KSC for giving us a vehicle Discovery that had absolutely no problems, and we're just very thrilled to bring it back to Kennedy today in the same condition that we left in. And I also like to thank the Johnson Space Center and all the folks there who trained us, and all the payload folks who got it all organized, and Mission Control that spent all the long hours there supporting the mission, because as you know, we can't do this without a team, and we've got a very good team on 95. And with that, again, we had a very good mission, and we're going to walk around our vehicle and see what it really looks like. Thank you.